Oh,
Welcome back, everybody, to Sunday Night Teacher Talk.
Why does that always happen?
We literally, I'm sorry that was muted. I just gave away the keys to
Thanks, Tracy.
A Perfect Life. I don't know why I do that every time. I don't know why it's good.
And I don't always see the bottom comments.
There was a lot of prompting. Anyway, yes, we should put a sign on this microphone.
I know,
that says,
a reminder.
Is there sound?
Unmute.
I will skip all my other nonsense that I was talking about and just say I'm so thankful that you're here. It is Labor Day weekend here in the U.S., which we're not really sure what that means, but history teachers, they know what it means. But we get a day off. And so our kids have a 4-day weekend. Most folks have at least a 3-day weekend. And if you're in the Northeast, you're starting school on Tuesday usually. So this is perfect timing. So we're going to get right into it. Look, folks, you can ask any question that you want. We stream on different platforms. So if there's a platform where you want to be anonymous, like set it up that your question is anonymous if you don't want to ask it and have your name said out loud or something. But we're all over the place. We're on LinkedIn and Instagram and, well, we don't stream live on Spotify, but this will be on Spotify tomorrow morning. So we're here for you. And if you have an answer to someone's question, please answer their question. Like, even if you have a further question, or you can just the same pain or the same joy, just share it with them in the comment section as well. It's like just reaffirm sometimes that someone's going through something that you're going through. So with that, if you have a question, if you could put question or Q before it, that just helps us see it. But yeah, I'm ready when you are.
Okay, I'm ready. Gion's up first.
Hit it.
Asking, how do you bridge the poverty gap in relating to the students in your classroom who have been through trauma and struggle? It's a great question.
I think, all right, so I have a video on this, and I talk about it when I do talks places. But this idea that there's 3 types of students in your class, right? There's student 1 that everybody loves to teach. This is the very short version of this. I talk about it in my book also. 1 is the kid that everybody likes to teach. 3 is the kid that needs the most attention because they just are an endless source of attention needing. And then there's kid 2. Kid 2 is the kid that flies under the radar. Sometimes that's because this kid has experienced some sort of trauma. Sometimes it's just because they're nice and good and they don't ask questions. But this is the kind of kid that is hurting that no one knows they're hurting. This is the kid that gets to your high school classroom on a 2nd grade reading level. This is the kid that shows up in your 5th grade math class and they can't even add. So what we have to do in knowing there's those 3 types of students, and I realize that's oversimplification. There might be, 2.5 kid. I don't know. But it's allowing us it's a reminder to look for different types of students. Kid 1 and kid 3 are so loud, 1 with excitement, 3 with issues, that we stop giving equal amounts of time to all kids. So it's making sure that everyone feels seen. Gian, one of the ways that we've done this, and I don't know how big your school is, and I have a video on this as well, is like we'll take like a piece of sticker paper or like a big Post-it sheet and write all the kids' names on it. Other times we've projected it up onto the wall and everybody gets a different color sticker. So like if I was doing it with my wife, she maybe would get a green sticker, probably black or very, very dark gray actually. And then I would get pink. And we put our stickers next to kids that we have a relationship with. We put a half sticker next to kids that we sort of kind of like, there's something there, but it's not like you're not their go-to. What this does is it shows us what kids are getting an overabundance of care, which is fine, and then what students are receiving little to no care. And when we can do this, what we're doing is identifying these students. So to your question, how do we make these connection points, especially through kids that have been through trauma or some sort of struggle, is just by seeing them. I saw a really great clip. And I love, how like sometimes you'll get ideas from something you're reading or listening to. And then other times you'll hear someone say something and you're like, man, I never heard anyone else say that. I felt like that was my idea. So I had one of those moments the other day. I was listening to the Rich Roll podcast, and he had someone on, this woman that I did not listen to the whole podcast yet, but she said, when you have teenagers that are going through something, most people make the mistake of giving advice. Kids just want you to listen. Be empathetic and curious. But the curious thing is like bonus points. Just listening. Just making believe that you're the only person that exists right now, and that this is the only thing I care about, right? That is all kids want. And so since we're not trained in how to deal with a lot of this stuff, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychologist. You know what I can do? Give you my undivided attention. I can give you the present of my presence. And so I think that that's how we begin to do this. And if we do this as a community, as a school, look out, because that's a lot of people doing a lot of caring. And I think that heals hearts.
What is it that you say in your presentation, your slides? Oh, your attention.
Your attention is more important than your advice.
Yeah, that's that. Okay, Ruth Akers is up next asking, I'm a new supervisor. How do I gain trust from my trade teachers, and budgets are slashed now?
So I heard a really interesting thing. It was this morning. I don't know who the guy was. On Saturdays and Sundays, if I'm up early enough, because we get up so early during the week that Saturdays and Sundays are like a little bit of a later wake up. And then I love just watching randomness on YouTube. And so today I was watching something about customer experience. This guy was talking about how Xfinity several years ago was losing, I think, 1 million users a month. Something crazy, right? Right? That is like
Xfinity,
yeah. So, and the reason was, it was like, if they came to work at your house to fix something, it was like the guy goes, you would have the window of when they would be there that they would give you would be any time from tomorrow to March. And like, you just never knew. Their service sucked. Their customer service sucked. They just never showed up on time when they were coming to fix stuff. So they realized that they were on a downward spiral. They have a meeting, all hands on deck meeting. Some guy from the back of the room, who is like Joe Nobody that works at the place, they said, does anyone have any ideas? No ideas are bad ideas. We're just trying to brainstorm here. Some dude raises his hand in the back and he goes, how about we fix this stuff that people get bothered when it doesn't work? And they were like, all right, let's do this. So they poured $110 million into closing the gap from service calls to 24 to 48 hours. And they call you an hour and ahead of time. That their customer service was through the roof, was like infinitely better, right? Like when you call Apple, and all these things, they started fixing them. And now they have better retention than any other company. What does this mean for you? What if we looked at the things?
Whoa.
What if we looked at the things that were broken and we tried to fix them? Ask your teachers, what would make their year better? What does admin not usually take care of? What do they not usually help with? What do supervisors usually overlook? And then build time into your schedule where that's what you're working on, right? So whether it's 10 minutes a day in the beginning, or 30 minutes, or an hour, or whatever it is, build the time into your schedule, and then start fixing things that people have problems with. The problem with leadership most of the time is folks don't feel like they can do anything. They feel like what they're doing is working for managers and not leaders. Leaders take us on a journey from suck to great. Managers manage the status quo. Managers are lifeguards. They just make sure that nobody's drowning. They're not teaching anybody to swim. So what you have to do is find out what people need and then fix those things. And then let them know you fixed the thing, right? Like you want to get known for that. That is what is going to make you, I think, a useful leader, a useful supervisor, and really, really help people. Be in the game of being of service and of helping people, and watch what happens.
I think that is so true. It's like the quickest way to gain trust is to actually solve problems for them. Yeah. It's like that would probably blow their minds.
Yeah.
Okay, the teaching romance is asking any tips for student teachers starting in a week, although it's called differently here in Germany. So any tips for student teachers and tips on when teaching at 2 different schools? It's a tricky one.
So I'll do this. If you are a student teacher, don't wait to get involved. Get involved with as many things as you can without burning yourself out. And you'll know when that burnout period happens, right? That's also, don't get involved in crap that you're not like super stoked about or isn't truly helpful. So when I was student teaching, I also spent my weekends helping with the theater department, right? Even though I have zero theater, actually I have a little bit of theater background. I was in Computerized Christmas in the 6th grade. I was a starring role at the Morristown Mall in New Jersey. So a lot of people from New Jersey, you probably remember that, like from 1987, 88. Anyway, I took a long sojourn and didn't start doing anything in theater again until my 30s, where I started helping at the school. And that was just like showing up on weekends and like, if they need someone to go pick up paint, if they needed someone to like cut something, like I used my construction skills and did stuff. I helped with SAT, like collecting money for the SAT. I helped with the AV department. I helped with like all the stuff that I could, because I wanted like the chance to try, because in student teaching, who cares if you suck? It doesn't matter, because so you should just be trying stuff. You're not getting paid anyway. And it has no bearing on your job here in the US anyway. So and I'm not saying suck. I'm saying try things, put yourself out there. It gives you more chances to try stuff to see what you will like and what you won't like before you actually get a job. And it helps you to connect with students. The other component I would say is connect with students in every way that you can. Eat lunch with students, say hi to students in the hallway, start random conversations, talk to kids at their locker, shake hands at your door. It's constantly doing that. Why? Because as I've said before, we gravitate towards the things we're the most familiar with. When kids see you, when they interact you with little things, with nonsensical things, they will come to you with the important things. Kids don't want to go get tutored by someone who they don't know, who they're not sure what their room is like. That like, is this going to be weird after school now that I'm sitting with you? And it's like, my students know, they see me so much that I engage with them so much that 1, they know who I am. And 2, they know they're not the only person in my classroom at the end of the day. It's like a party in my classroom every day, for better or for worse sometimes. So it's creating that space. Now, look, if you are in charge of a student teacher, right? So in the States, we call them a lot of times a cooperating teacher. Give those folks room to try stuff. They are not you, right? Give them room to try things, and then be there to coach them when they try and things aren't going well, or to make things better. But don't hold on so tight to like what you do and not let them do. I taught, by the end of my first week in student teaching, I had 2 classes that were completely mine. By the end of 2 weeks of student teaching, I was in charge of 5 classes a day. I was a full-time teacher, right? And my cooperating teacher, for the most part, just sat in the back of the room and took notes. And then, this is not legal, but he did it anyway. In the last few weeks of me teaching, he just started leaving. He would just leave the classroom, because he's like, you have to know what it feels like to be in there all by yourself. You have, like, don't let this happen. Now, I'm not suggesting people do that, because it is illegal. But you know, I'm from the Southwest now. You know, I'm just living that cowboy life. With regards to teaching at 2 schools, that's tough. I mean, I would try to make the most of it. I would turn so look, in my last few years of teaching, I made sojourns every day to a coffee shop in Philadelphia to get 7 minutes of outside of the school. That could have been 7 minutes driving somewhere else. I like to make events though. So I would make it from going from one school to the other. Make sure you're listening to music that you like or a podcast that's uplifting. It's a good time to throw on some real rap with Reynolds and just let it like play audio in the background. Something that's going to get you excited or soothe you, not listening to the news, not listening to your favorite murder mystery podcast. I've done that kind of stuff before. Like on my lunch, I've watched shows. I'm so much better when I watch or listen to something that energizes me, right? Have a little coffee, eat your lunch on the way, bring a special snack. But I like making moments out of stuff. So I'd make a moment and turn it into like a fun event that I didn't have to lament.
Would you do anything different? Like, does what you do in the school change at all since you're at two different schools?
I think the only thing I would think about is having supplies at both schools. I would try to limit the amount of stuff I have to take from one place to another. So, but I would even do that if I had multiple classrooms. I would want to have like a section or a corner or a file cabinet, something that was my own. So you're not leaving with all your math manipulatives or your giant poster board paper or your whiteboard.
Bags.
Yeah. It's like just have your stuff there that you need there and have your stuff here that you need here. That's what I would try and do.
That makes sense. I lost my question.
Which really benefits, makes it useful to have a lot of things as digital. That helps too.
Yeah. All right. Linda is up next. She's asking, what do you think about weekly quizzes? Teaching an AP class for the first time, math, 12th grade. AP pre-calculus exam is in May.
Awesome. Congratulations, Linda. That's some heavy lifting. That's awesome. I gave weekly quizzes every week for years. I did it on Friday. So Monday, new concept or like sometimes if a concept took a little bit longer, what I would do is whatever I introduce on Monday, whatever we're working through that week, I think of quizzes as a check for understanding. I'm trying to map and see where kids are, what they're mastering. So I'm very mindful about the questions that I put on because I want to check and make sure that people understand what's going on. It's not long. So typically a Friday would be a vocab test and a quiz on anything we're doing that week. They could retake the quiz Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of the following week. On their time, right? So before school, after school, during lunch, something like that, during a study hall, even if I had a class, a lot of times I'd allow students to get a pass to come to my class bars. But they, you love when I do that, don't you? You think it's so funny when I do bars. You're like, oh, yeah, it's talented. So I would say that's part of it is it's that checking for understanding, but it's not, I'll say this, Linda, and I'm not saying you do this, but just as a warning kind of or not a warning, but just like a heads up to anyone. I don't do quizzes as a gotcha. I don't do this kind of quiz as a gotcha. I do have a gotcha quiz. And I'll share that with you too. I do daily quizzes sometimes that are one question. And that was really if my students had to do homework for like reading for homework, back when I did homework. And that was the simple version of that is if you got the answer right, it was 3 points. If you got the answer wrong, it was a 0. There's no in between unless you were like, I don't know it. Like I didn't do the reading and I'll give you a 1, right? So don't try and BS me. Just let me know that you didn't do it. Well, what this allowed me to do that the kids didn't really realize was that 1, the mark was so low, it was only 3 points, but it allowed me to keep a tracker of kids that weren't reading so that when their parents came in and I said, listen, I think the big concern here why your student's not doing well is they're not reading. And a kid would go, no, I am doing the reading. And I go, actually, I have 6 weeks of data that says that you haven't been reading in class and you admitted it. And that was a little bit of a gotcha. But
that's so smart. I think that's brilliant.
So but the quiz, I love weekly quizzes and it builds it into your rhythm. So it's not like a surprise. It's not I gotcha. And try your best. As long as you don't cheat, then you can retake the quiz. And even if you haven't been here most of the week, I want you to try and take it anyway, because I just tell kids like, who cares what you get on it, right? You can just retake it next week anyway, but you're basically getting to see the quiz ahead of time. So just give it a shot. Give it your best. Who cares what you got? I can even not put your grade in so your parents don't see it if you haven't been here all week, but at least you have a sense of like what's coming up and the way the questions will appear on the quiz. Forgot my wedding ring.
Oh, geez, you don't want to forget
It was in my
that.
pocket.
Didn't one of the kids used to say like, "Oh, you don't have it on, it doesn't count."
Oh, I lost it one time.
Oh,
Remember?
that's right.
Because I had it in my pocket. I put it in the change container. That's where we found it ages later. And Brody was like, "You're basically not married to mom right now."
That means we really aren't married because I lost my whole wedding ring,
No,
which is terrible.
we're
Sad.
engaged though still.
Thank goodness for that.
So one of these days.
All right, Tristan is up next asking, how do you handle candy without the students getting dependent on it? I am in a remote school where candy isn't always easy to access.
So let me tell you this. This is why I love this. This is a great question, right? This is such a great question. One, external motivators are okay, everybody. I know a lot of teachers have a problem with this. Everybody is motivated by external motivators, right? Like that's why most people, if you're honest with yourself, it's why you get dressed. It's why you go to work. It's why if you're not going to the gym, if you're not getting better looking, right? Like no one's at the gym like, I'm just trying to get my valves as healthy as possible, right? It's like, what are you even talking about right now, right? Like, no, you want to look sexy, bro. We get it. So so I love this. I think that it is the way I handle candy in my classroom. I do not constantly have candy. First time candy enters my classroom is on the day after Halloween, where I cull my children's candy and I allow them to keep stuff that is like decent candy, but like anything they don't want or that is truly nasty. So like there was this thing a couple of years ago. Remember
you're gonna get some hate on this because somebody's gonna love this candy.
So go ahead, bring it. The gummy hamburgers and stuff like
all right,
that.
Those are pretty good.
Those were gnarly, dude. And so there's certain stuff like that. Our house doesn't do Jolly Ranchers. We don't do sweet tarts. We're like
gummies.
We're
chocolate only.
Yeah,
family.
We're basically a chocolate. Well, me and bro do Sour Patch Kids, but like my kids don't even like Swedish Fish and stuff like that, which is I try not to hold that against them. But
all the red dye in Swedish Fish.
Yeah,
no.
Like and old people candy, Circus Peanuts, Werther's Originals. Come on, man. One day when I'm 90. But I bring into class. I give it as an incentive if you're doing a good job. So what I do is I get other kids to do work because I'm just walking around quietly and giving candy out to kids. If I find trash on the floor, I don't give candy out. If you ask me for candy, you do not get some, right? No one likes someone that's needy. So just your actions will speak louder than your words. Just being on point. If I'm walking around and you're in the right place and I see you trying, even if you're struggling and you're trying to figure it out, bro, I hook it up, man. If you're doing a great job, I'll let you pick. If you're doing an okay job or if you got back on track, I will pick for you. And sometimes if I have something that's really horrible, if a kid like begs for candy, I give them like the worst thing that exists. They get the gummy hamburger. But and you're not allowed to share. That's my other rule. Like I love sharing. My students have historically been they're just great at sharing stuff all the time. Like all of my boys were. But this is for you. And if I want them to have one, I'll give it to them. But this is an incentive. And so you're actually working against me by giving someone something. So if a kid is off task and you're giving them half your candy bar, dude, now you just come on. Now you're working against me. Now, the other thing I use in class is stickers. Stickers are way easier to get. They are not like candy's perishable, but like you can keep stickers for years and you're doing great. I give you a full sticker. You're doing half as great. I give you half a sticker, but I'm going to give you like, if it's a sticker of a squirrel, you're getting the squirrel's butt first, and then I'll give you the good part of the sticker. And if you're kind of sort of almost doing good, I give you like the worst sticker. So if there's a sticker book of Hot Wheels, you're going to get a parking cone or something like that, or a wrench, because I want you to be caution and fix it. So yeah, that's kind of how I roll with that.
John Lopez said in the comments that in California, they just passed a bill that they will ban red food dye in snacks and
Which is probably a good idea. That stuff's horrible and it's outlawed in most places.
I actually knew that one because if you follow Food Babe on Instagram, I love her. It's one of my favorite accounts because she
makes my life so easy.
Yes.
I love her. Thank you, Food Babe. I will say this. Flounders used to give out carrot sticks. If kids were helping her with something, like grading stuff for her, they'd be like, yo, do you have that stuff that you put the carrots in? And it was hummus. They loved hummus, celery, chopped vegetables. She would just bring in chopped like peppers and stuff. And kids loved them. It was like a sensory thing too.
Kids will eat whatever you give them.
Facts. So don't feel like beholden to candy. Now, I will say,
there's
all that
good
stuff,
organic candy out there.
But that stuff, yeah, but it's still processed and it's expensive.
That is
Vegetables are not as expensive, but they are perishable. You can't keep them as long.
Yeah.
So but that was one of her things is like she would
I love it. That's so cute.
give out that stuff too. So it kind of depends on your school.
All right, Charlotte's up next asking, how do you help students with learning differences that have a lot of trouble getting started on their work without embarrassing them?
I love this question. I give them all the time they need. And I let them know it's all right where you are. My job is to help get you closer to where you need to be. And so if that means and I'm not talking about even with kids that don't have IEPs, right? Like, and even kids that have IEPs, I make them better because IEPs are like, in the schools I've worked at, I'll say this, they largely are about covering your school's butt. They're not always about helping kids. So I will, if they have like a kid needs extra time to take an assessment, dude, everybody has as much time as they ever could possibly need to take an assessment in a class, unless they realize that you just are screwing around. It's building a relationship with a kid. And then Charlotte, you are telling them, look, it's all right. I understand where you are. Here's where you need to be. And then what I would do, Charlotte, is figure out a way, if even just for that student, to chart their growth. I want them to see that they're getting better. Is their fluency getting better? Is their reading speed getting better? Is there how many times they've done homework? How many times they've handed stuff in? How many times they have participated in class? I want them to see that those acts are going to build, that practice is going to build their ability. And I want them to see that over time. I want them to know. This is why, like, when I take my kids to the gym, well, I don't do it with my son as much anymore, but I should. I did it all the time with my daughter, though, where they would have to do strength tests every 2 weeks when we would go to the gym. And then,
I forgot about these.
Yeah, Marley hated it. So I want to see how much you can lift one time. But the thing that you would see it on her face. She hated it, but you would see the smile when she like upped her ability. Now, I will say this. I do it with Brody. I forgot about this. We use an app now, though, that lets you know every time you work out if you have any personal bests. So you're constantly seeing your growth and we're tracking the data. That's what I want to do for kids. And look, I remind kids that like everybody learns differently. That school was largely made, I talk about this in my book, school's largely made for kids that are, if we're talking about ice cream here, that are vanilla. But what happens when your kids are mint chocolate chip or Rocky Road, right? Doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that that's not the way that they do it. And then it is having utterly strong patience, never getting upset, always keeping it cool, even when you're frustrated, because that's going to translate. I want to love kids in a way that helps them. And that will help kids to try more, to not give up, to see that they can grow, to see that they can change. And then once you let kids in on that secret, that they can do it, bro, it's a wrap then. Now it's game on. Now you're on the hook. And kids can do anything.
All right. But do you have any tactical things for when you have those students in class and you assign something or they're supposed to be doing something and you see them messing about, daydreaming, whatever it is? How do you refocus them and get them back
First,
on task without embarrassing them?
I have to have a real conversation with them. So that might not happen in that moment. right? I have to have a real conversation, because you'll have kids that are in your class that are like, this is so dumb, I don't even need to be in here. Why do I even have to do this? And you're thinking like, bro, I know what your reading level is. I know what your of ability is in math. I know what your comprehension is like. And you're just acting like, I see what you're doing. You're trying to get out of this. So I have real honest conversations. Look, let me show you something. Here's the chart. Here's where you are. This is where you're supposed to be, right? This gap separates you from basically everybody else in class. And that can't happen, because you're not going to graduate. You're not going to get to the next grade. You're not going to find the level of success in which you would love to have in your life without being here. And I know what here means. This isn't just some arbitrary line or thing that the school made up. I know where you need to be, and I know why. I then show kids that they can get there. So I'm not trying to like BS a kid, right? Like, I'm not trying to pull the wool over their eyes or just getting them to do it because I said so. I'm doing it because, bro, you're behind, and we're going to keep it real, right? This is what real rap with Reynolds comes from. It's real talks that my students would say they're having real rap with Reynolds. So first is that real conversation. The next thing is tracking. So maybe give those kids less questions at first. Maybe find reasons or moments that you can work with them. Maybe find reasons or moments that they could work with someone else and they're teaming up. You want to be real smart about that, because you have kids that what I'm trying to do is pair you with someone that's actually going to help you. It's getting kids to come in for extra tutoring time. So if a kid has an elective, unless it's something that makes them come to school. So if you have a kid that comes to school because of art class every day, don't take them out of art. But if you know that they're also just in study hall some period and study hall's nonsense, have them come to your room, right? Or can you drop by their study hall and help them out? Or can you create a moment after school? I used to have like these parties after school where we would eat food and listen to music and do work together, and all the kids would show up, and it was rad. You have to start helping them believe that, but building belief, I think, starts with having real, honest conversations with students. And don't be afraid to call home too. Like, contact home and say like, hey, look, this is the behavior. Here's where I'm seeing your students at. Here's the behavior I'm seeing in class. I really want to just help them out the best that I can. What has worked best in the past, whether in someone else's class or at home? What has worked best to help them get to where they need to be?
All right. James is up next, asking, how do you work with a student who, whenever you give them an assignment on paper, they crumble it up with nothing written on it at the end of class? When you talk with them, they answer back rudely.
James, I would say all behavior comes from somewhere. I've met very, very few innately like kids that are just kind of bad, that I'm pretty sure they might have just been born that way. But most kids, when you know their story, you realize that this behavior is coming from somewhere. And this goes for all kinds of behavior. This is kids that come to school drunk, come to school high, that are overly promiscuous, that curse all the time and are trying to get like a reaction, that want to sleep and want everyone to know about it, that show that they don't care. I think everyone in life wants to be successful. It's when they don't think that what you're telling them to do is going to lead to success that they don't do it. And they don't want it as badly as what they're doing right now. I would argue that you have to help kids understand that they have to choose their hard, right? Like, being miserable, failing in life is hard. Winning in life is also hard. Pick which one you want to do, right? Like, choose your hard. So what I would do is, to the best of my ability, is find out what this kid's story is. You have to figure out what it is. Like, I have a part of my book that is talks about this kid. I changed his name for the book, but his real name is Joe. And Joe's old enough now. That's why I changed it. And I asked him. When I wrote the book, he would have said I could use his name also, but I didn't want to have him make that decision when he was a teenager. Joe was one of the worst kids I ever taught, ever. He was horrible. didn't do any work, was violent, was mean. And I gave him detention for a week, and his detention was that he had to eat lunch with me. And in that moment, in that week, I found out that his best friend had been killed just before school went back. And so that was my entry point. It's finding out where a kid is coming from. And then I have to be able to figure out how what we're doing in class should matter to you. How does it solve the problem or help with the problem? How does it help you create the life you want instead of the life you're suffering through? And you have to be able to do that with everything. It cannot be because it's on the test. It cannot be so that you can just pass high school. What does high school mean? So Joe wanted to be a nurse. Joe thought he was just going to fail out of high school and just start nursing. Bro, you'll get arrested. What do you need to show up? Just start giving people shots and taking their temperature? So high school, you need high school so you can go to Philadelphia Community College for 2 years so you can get a nursing certification. And then with that, average nursing salary in Philadelphia starts at $60,000 a year, which was more than Joe's mom was making with 2 jobs as a single parent trying to raise her 3 kids. So you can make more money than probably anyone ever has in your family's history, but you got to play the game. Then kids will play the game. Now it's like, so what are you telling me? You're going to let math get in the way of you doing that? What? Bro, come on. And I start having those conversations, but kids have to know you're really about them and that you're really about this work and that you're really about them finding success. So find out their story, figure out a way to connect the dots for them, and then that's where you start.
And just in case people haven't heard that story before, that took you a week to get to that point for him to even share that. Yeah. He sat silent every detention.
Even though she made him lunch every day, Joe didn't want to talk to me. Then I'll tell you what, Joe ate lunch with me every single day that was the beginning of freshman year through graduation. And I still talk to Joe. I was
going to say, you still regularly, I love when you connect and do a phone call with him. It's great to hear how wonderful
it makes me,
his life is like
I feel amazing. Like I'm almost levitating because he's so.
It makes me cry.
It's making me emotional now. He is with someone in a committed relationship. He has a little girl. He's working at a hospital and working towards becoming an emergency room nurse to help people like his friend who was killed. He talks about things like generational wealth and he saves all his, I mean, he's just
awesome.
He's just awesome. But that didn't have to happen. It could have been another kid that was just like, yo, screw this. I don't have time for this nonsense. And they don't pay me enough. But you take the time, and that doesn't happen with every kid. I have a lot of kids that has not worked with, but you don't know what you're dealing with here. You might have a Joe on your hands. So,
and again, your attention is more important than your advice in that scenario with kids like that. Okay, next up is Corbin asking.
That's a great name.
It is. Have you had a student teachers? At one point, did you know you were ready to teach them? 7 years in, and I still feel like I'm trying to figure things out for myself.
So here's the thing. I have had student teachers, and I've had partially because of where my school was located in Philadelphia, there's so many universities around. And partially because of my work on YouTube, like people would find me and then ask their schools if they could come to Boys Latin in Philly and teach, like, and be in my classroom. And then that built partnerships that I had with, like, I used to work with St. Joe's in Philadelphia constantly. The thing that I had to remember was, I'll tell you this right now, Corbin, I am not the best teacher that my school ever had. I have known tons of teachers. I couldn't tell you how many that I've worked with over the years that are better, at least in some regards, and some of them totality, way better teacher than I ever was. I'm just, the guy that's willing to put his stuff on the internet. Now, here's the thing. When you're bringing in new teachers, you're not trying, it will blow your mind. At 7 years in, we forget what we didn't know. You forget. You think you might think you remember what it was like to be a first-year teacher or as a student teacher or as just a college student learning about education, but you don't. And I'll tell you this, beginning teachers are sometimes the hardest to work with because they think they have it on lock. They think they know how this is going to go. And when I get in the classroom, I'm just be teaching like this and doing all this stuff and I'm going to crush. And then teaching punches them in the mouth and then they need help. So bringing kids in, giving them a safe place to try, to excel, to fail, to have all the experiences, the whole gamut of experiences, and then being able to coach them through that the best way that you can. We forget how much we have learned along the way. And new teachers are like people that haven't dated before, right? Like it's like you get your feelings hurt real quick. You get emotional about things. You don't realize how tiring it's going to be, right? Like talk to a first-time parent and tell them, see how tired they are. You get callous to that. You have enough kids and over enough time, you're just like, what? How much sleep do we need? Like way less. You learn to figure out how to nap as your car's warming up in the morning or something like that. Like you're taking a little nap while coffee's brewing. So I think that it's a great idea to bring people in because it is. And look, even if they're not student teaching, could they do their practicum? Could they just come in and do observations and get real world observation time? Start building that. You're giving someone an opportunity, and I think that's wonderful. It does take up a lot of your time, though. But I've had some great kids come through my room. And Christina and Maggie were people that I called up. I stayed in touch with forever. I actually had one of my old students did not a student teaching, but a abnormally long practicum with me. Remember Genesis Hernandez used to come up? She used to take the train up to Philly.
Oh, that's right.
And for like 2 years, she came to my school or something like that.
She's lovely.
And she was a student in my class and then came back and did that with me. What you got?
All right, Carl is up next. It's a two-parter. I still have to find the other part. Part 1 of 2. In the UK, further education section, we have tutorial or what you might call citizenship, which covers things like consent, sexual harassment, etc. I have been praised for giving good but how can I make these topics a bit more fun and engaging like my electrical lessons without coming across as weird?
That's a great question. One,
can you do that in a class that talks about things like consent and sexual harassment? That's
now
my side question.
Are they fun? I don't know. I don't know how we make sexual harassment fun.
I'll let you handle this.
But I'll say this. You can make them engaging. How? When you build relationships with students, and look, I'm going to say this. As a 40-something-year-old man who's married with children, talking to teenage boys mostly, I did this when I talked to girls too. I realized that I am not something else, right? Like I'm not a 22-year-old female talking to a group of boys. Like I understand to the extent at which I'm capable, sort of what I present as benefits me largely in the situation. And that's a whole nother conversation as to why and all that stuff. What I'm saying is like, it might be different for other people. Now I've had friends that have had equal conversations, that like my friend Cho, significantly younger than I am. She's a woman. She's had perfectly good conversations, but the level of respect was such that we can enter into this world. We can enter into this conversation. I've said before, there's not a thing on the planet that I would not talk to my students about if they were legitimately interested. Sexual harassment, consent, suicide, Black Lives Matter, Me Too movement, all kinds of stuff. But here's how we make it engaging. When kids feel safe to be able to ask questions, answer questions, push back, get clarity on things that they don't understand. We make this a really safe place to ask to be a community that's learning about this, then that changes things. Because then we can, like, look, I talk about this quote a lot, but Anis Mojgani says that young people are often told speak when spoken to and then are never spoken to. Giving kids an opportunity to just speak, they will talk to you about damn near anything and in the most honest way ever. And then I'm trying to facilitate conversations, not dictate conversations, right? So I can speak truth to stuff, but like, I'm not trying to make them believe what I believe, right? But I will, if kids are talking out of pocket, right? Like, I remember we had a long conversation when Bill Cosby was accused of raping a number of women and then was subsequently sent to prison. I had a bunch of kids that were like, these women are like, they're gold diggers. They're just trying to get money for, they're going after someone that's famous and making stuff up. And then be like, it was like, all right, but y'all, like, here's the facts, right? Like, so like, I'm not against speaking truth to kids or pushing back, but being able to facilitate those conversations, I think really helps. Now I tell you the other thing for folks that like, that helps everyone, from folks that you have these relationships with your students or you don't, is bringing people in. I'll tell you, and this was, we're going to get real for a minute. That Bill Cosby moment, it was explosive in our school, right? And so there was like this, having this conversation around rape culture was very difficult. And what we did, there was a number of women that I worked with at the time that were very passionate about this, who had been victims of rape. And we had a whole school-wide meeting one day. Everybody had to attend, all the students. And these women all got up and shared their stories. And it shifted the conversation. It was the quietest I had ever heard an entire group of individuals ever. Because people you cared about and knew were getting up and saying, this is what happened to me. And one woman shared that like she had been raped by this guy in college who was super wealthy. And she's like, I just never said anything because I knew that I would never be able to, like, his family could afford lawyers and all this stuff. So having sometimes get on any topic, having experts come in, having guests come in, having people come in and talk about whether it was their chant, like what it was like to be in the Vietnam War or World War II, or what it was like to be in a concentration camp, what it was like to be in prison, what it was like to learn how to read when you were 60, whatever. I don't care what it is, but having guests come in really, really helps the situation as well.
Yeah, he said that it's more of to increase the learners getting involved and expressing their opinions. But doing that in that setting, I think, is a perfect way to do that.
And look, if you don't feel safe doing that, make your school give you a partner and make sure it's someone you trust. Because the last thing you want to do is have some jackass in there with you. And I've had that happen. But I've also had it happen where I've asked and been asked to be a part of something. One time I did one with Pascal, and Pascal was like, he's one of the best people I've ever taught with. And even though I knew I could have the conversation on my own, man, the way he did it was so expertly executed. I went away from that being better. And then I started doing that regularly. I would be in talks. I'm like, oh, Meeks is in that room. And Meeks is another guy who just, his way of talking to students was so expertly done that you just start gleaning things from other people. So even if you think you can handle it, sit in with people that you think are doing a great job and borrow their ideas.
All right.
That's a good question, man. Thank you for doing that work, Carl. That's important stuff, and it can be nerve-wracking and scary to people. So that's awesome.
Caro is up next. See if you can speak to this.
I'm going to say it's Caro.
Caro, sorry. My bad. A lot has happened. Right. Been 9 months, but I don't enjoy my admin / managers. Also, unusual brand of students. Lacking a sense of purpose, but still trying to shine my light. Need a woo-woo speech.
All right.
A woo-woo speech.
So,
Go for it.
I have worked for a lot of horrible people. I've worked for a lot of people that suck at their job. I've had classes that have been the worst. I have taught kids that have said unspeakable things that I will not tell you unless we're not even having coffee. We have to be 2 drinks in and I'll tell you what happened in that class, right? Like that's what those classes are like. In my best moments, I have realized that they don't control me. They don't control how I feel. They can try and control what I do, but I'm here for kids. And not all kids are my. I don't have to be the one for every kid, right? So what I'm trying to do is, and when I say be the one, I'm not talking about like being a savior or something like that. I'm saying what I always say. On Tuesday, or if you don't live in the U.S., on Monday, you're going to roll into school. Some kid had the worst weekend of his life. Some kid feels like they have no friends. Some kid looks like they belong, but they don't. Some kids eat lunch by themselves. Somebody walked to school. Somebody took a bus to the train to the bus and then walked to school, and nobody said good morning to them yet until they walk into the building. You could be the first person to say good morning to that kid. If you look for it, you'll find kids that think they're invisible, and you can let them know that they're visible. You can find kids that don't have a lunch, that don't have deodorant, that don't read so well, that are really struggling because their first language isn't English, and they are made to read, Shakespeare, and they can barely understand like the Cat in the Hat. Find those kids and make that your mission. Find those students, because guess what? It doesn't matter. Your admin could suck, be the worst ever. You could have horrendous kids running mad in the hallways of your school, disrupting classes and being fools. Make your mission what can you do? What can you do? Because in the midst of all that madness, you know who loses sight? You know who we forget about? Are the kids that are quietly suffering. There's some kid that suffers from dyslexia and your school doesn't test for it and nobody knows about it. The kid that has ADHD that would rather just put their head down than get in trouble and look stupid in front of your whole class. The kid that if you did push, you did show up, you did talk to, you did listen to, you did give them time, they would give you everything they have in your class. And then you would really make a difference. The other things are obstacles that I don't even jump over. I just go around them because I'm not even showing up for you anyway, bro. I'm showing up for these kids. I'm showing up for kids that want to learn, that kids that if I gave them my time, energy, and effort, they would mirror it back. They would give it back to me. And so that's what I'm looking for. And that's true no matter if it's your worst day. On your worst day at school, when you got reamed out by someone, when an angry parent showed up, there's some kid that's having a sucky day. Get it together and show up for that kid, and it will heal you. And it will help you feel a sense of purpose in going to school. That even when my school, before I left, we had 6 principals in 3 years. And since then, that last principal's gotten fired also, right? The whole leadership team has gotten fired. People can try to make your life hell. You decide. Feels like hell? Wear shorts and a Hawaiian shirt to school, right? Put some sunblock on and get to work. That's so you can make some of those decisions while you're there. And then look, if that school's not for you, look for other opportunities, right? It sucks to have to suffer through things. Teaching under great leadership is one of the best gifts you'll ever be given. And I know that because I've taught for people that were the best I could have ever asked for. And that helps too. But to get through this year, find invisible kids, let them know that they're visible, and do that work.
I love Chris Carson said in the comments. He goes, "If you can't teach them, love them because
Yep.
love will teach them."
Yep.
I love that. Mm-hmm.
Carson, that's your T-shirt right there, buddy.
Okay. We can take one more because we're almost at an hour. Enjoy life.
Even though we had about 4 minutes of me going,
this is
moving
true.
my lips. Oh, go ahead.
Had no sound. Enjoy Life is asking, CJ, what activities do you recommend to keep class fun? I teach history and I have a blast, but I want them to create the same energy as mine.
So, one, I never expect kids to match my energy. I love this job. I picked this job. I come here every day because I want to, right? Like I love, if you love history, right? What we're doing is planting seeds. And I'll tell you this. Let's say you're either a gardener or you're a fully mature plant. Seedlings are never going to produce as much fruit as a gardener or a fully mature tree. And I'm not sure if that really makes sense, but you see what I'm kind of going for there. What I can do is create opportunities. I can plant those seeds. I can nurture those seeds. I can water them. I can put sunshine on them. I can make sure the conditions are the best thing that can be to grow. Ultimately, the kid has to decide to grow or not, right? And so I've had classes where one time we made a fire in the parking lot out of mulch and newspaper. And I'm not telling you to make fires in your parking lot. People, do not do this, actually. Don't do this. This is something I did. I don't recommend it. But I still only had 99% participation. 99% of the kids were in awe. Because, making a fire in the parking lot, this is unbelievable. I still had a kid that Derek Pratt, who stood on the side and didn't care. Bro, what? Yo, I just made a fire with a magnifying glass in the parking lot, man. Like, what else could I do? I could set my hair on fire. You wouldn't care. But we're creating opportunities. And I think the easiest way to do it that's the most sustainable is to do it in small chunks. Not everything can be fun either, right? Like sometimes stuff sucks, right? Like sometimes my school will give me things that we have to read. It's part of the curriculum. And it's like, man, this is a hard one. So listen, y'all, we're reading for grit. That sometimes the gym's fun. Sometimes getting in shape is fun. Sometimes it sucks, right? When me and my son swam last summer, I hated swimming. It's not something I enjoy. I don't like being out of breath and being underwater. Like I enjoy swimming for fun, but not for exercise. And he loved it. So it's looking for what's your hook going to be? What's your activity going to be? What's the culmination of this project going to be? Are we going to have a showcase? Are we going to have a red carpet? Are we going to have am I dressing up for this thing? What are those moments? But realizing that what's fun for one kid won't be fun for everyone. Even building things out of Lego. I had kids that loved building things out of Legos. Other kids that were like, are we doing that? Why do we have to do this? It's so dumb. What are the questions? Can't I just answer the questions? But that's the beauty of differentiating instruction, right? It's what's fun and enjoyable to one kid is going to be challenging and a drag to somebody else, right? But I'm trying to grow kids. So it's coming up with moments, I think, that are going to do that. And I lower my expectations by not expecting the same energy from my students that I'm giving, but that's my job. And look, that's not to say that it doesn't happen. I have kids that I think sometimes are more excited about stuff than I am. I'm like, holy crap, you guys really ran with this one. And that's awesome. But I try not to need it because then my expectations are I never am disappointed that something didn't turn out as well because I didn't have those expectations to begin with. It was I'm showing up, I'm giving y'all everything I got. And I will say though, that this is a little bit harder to do in speaking, that if I do speak somewhere and I don't get the energy back from the audience, that's a little bit harder of a pill to swallow for me. For some reason, kids get a pass for that or something like that. But even in that, it's that's what I do. And I'll tell you this. We did a workshop around classroom engagement where I ran through this whole section on how most of my ideas don't come from other teachers. They come from other places. And so I look at people that are the best in the world at what they do. So whether it's the Ritz-Carlton or the Savannah Bananas, I'm looking at what do they do to engage people? How do they build loyal customer experience, loyal customers? People that come back and back and back and back and back, that tell all their friends about the Savannah Banana game that they went to, right? It's not, so if you look into something like that, if you're not sure who they are, look them up. It's not just about the show. It's about their unbelievable level of customer service and customer experience that they build, that I look at that and I go, man, how could we do something like that in the classroom? How could we do that in our school? How could I do that with parents? How could I do that with students on the first day? How could I build a team of people around me in the school that are my go-to homies, that like we get after everything together on the highest level possible? It's looking outside of education to figure out ways that folks are doing this at the highest level and then bringing that back to your classroom. I think it opens up a wider range of like things that you can try to do in that. Cool?
Yes.
Anything else?
No.
No.
Are you going to go back to that camera?
Oh, yeah, I
You
can.
didn't do that. You took over.
Well, I wanted to move to this thing so that
I
we were
know.
more seamless. You know what I mean? Just trying to be seamless crew here. Gang, look, we love that you're on here. Tell your friends. There's somebody that's struggling this year that really needs help. You know, you can shoot them the podcast. It comes out the day after this. You can shoot them the invite, let them know that we exist. Join them. Come to the Facebook group and join the Facebook group. It's Real Rap with Reynolds Teacher Talk on Facebook. It's completely free and no one's advertising to you. You know, trying to help in any way that we can. And look, if your school is still looking for speakers for the beginning of the year or during the year of PD, shoot me an email. I'll send you the email that you should send your admin. I'll send you the brochure. I'll send you the speaker trailer, all the stuff so that you can, we can come live in person to your school and do this thing there. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Cool.
Have a great first week if it's your first week back after Labor Day.
And if you're having tomorrow off, enjoy that as well. That's it, gang. We'll see you next week. Peace.